Welcome back to Case Studies. I am so excited to spend some time with a man who's become one of my dear friends, somebody who I truly respect and have respected for a long time. And so Coach Mike Favero, a little context. So I went to Mountain Crest High School in northern Utah and had an amazing high school coach, Coach Dan Cox. You know, he's one of my heroes. And also Coach Erickson. Both those guys were just such, big influences in my life. But Mike was the coach at the rival high school at Logan High. And he just built such an incredible program. They beat us to go win a state championship and won. How many state championships did you win over the course of your career?
You ended up being lucky enough to win 5.
Yeah,
so.
five championships, and and just changed so many kids' lives. High school Hall of Fame coach, Utah High School Hall of Fame coach, and just an exceptional person. So I can't wait to just dive in, go reminisce, and go hear some of these stories, because I was on the other end of this buzzsaw, and it still to this day just hurts my heart, So, Coach, welcome.
Well, thank you, Casey, and it's an honor for me to be here and come full circle, having coached against you, and now I'd heard a lot about you, and now getting to become a close friend of yours, and sneaking me into the private equity world, which has
It's been so fun.
It's been great. And I've been an investor from a very, very young age into the stock market, knew nothing about the private equity space. So one of the great highlights, that's the gift that keeps giving for me, is seeing former players. I coached against you, and obviously all those kids that I've coached, I run into them daily, and to see people having great success, and then to build relationships as adults, because you guys were kids. I was in the high school industry. So it's a pleasure for me to be here and haven't gotten a chance to develop a relationship with you.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to this day, and we were actually talking about this earlier, but it was my senior year. It's up at Romney Stadium. And
good memories.
12 inches of snow.
Yeah.
It's cold. It's a morning game, and it was just this slugfest. I think we end up losing 7-6, missed an extra point. And I still remember, being at that 50-yard line, just crying like a baby. And I remember your players, and we were all rivals, and all of them were so respectful, came over and gave me a hug, told me I'd played a great game. And that was just kind of the program that you built. It was built off of respect. It was built off of, I remember watching film. Coach Erickson was just this, he loved watching film. And I was like, front of the class. Like
notepad ready to go.
Oh my gosh, I loved it. But I remember watching your receivers, and they'd, catch a ball, they'd run it over to the official and give it to the official. And there was a level of discipline, and there was a level of excellence that I noticed, being a young kid, and not really having much context, but I noticed it. And then as you look back at all these years and you see championships and all these things, it was obviously something that carried through. Talk to me about that. When you think about coaching, and it's like a subject we could go into forever.
Yeah.
But talk to me about your philosophy on coaching. Like when you think about what makes a great coach.
Well, I appreciate you bringing up that memory. And as you know, Cache Valley is a very interesting sports. High school sports is a big deal in Cache Valley, as you know, and now there are 5 high schools. But when you were a great athlete at Mountain Crest, it was Mountain Crest, Logan, and Skyview. Yeah. And the rivalries were very, very intense. But it was a big deal to me. Like our kids, you didn't have to put someone else down when we won. We had won a region championship also that year. And I remember your vice principal, Jack Robinson, we actually celebrated on we went off of the main football field onto that grass area at Mountain Crest High School.
Wow.
And mostly just respect for the game, respect for the opponent, being a gracious winner. quite frankly, is something that kids need to learn. And it's getting harder and harder in this day of social media and YouTube and TikTok and all of those things. So I didn't, that's the first time I'd heard that story about you, but I'm happy to hear that. And the character of we obviously had kids with great character. We promoted that.
You had great kids, but it starts with the top. It starts from the top, and there was something that you did that promoted it, that just said, we're going to win, but we're going to win the right way. Was that from the get-go? Was that always just something that was important to you?
I learned that from my high school coaches at Helix High School. It was about controlling the things you controlled. And coaches say that all the time, but there's a huge difference between words and actions, and having systems in place that do it the right way. And then it was a big deal for me. Like I took a lot of pride in saying, there's a lot of ways to coach, there's a lot of ways to lead, but to be genuine and to narrow it down. And it was important to me that kids learned at least the way that I thought was appropriate, and respect was always at the top of that. And sometimes people maybe hear me say that I was a very aggressive coach, and I spent a lot of time worrying about my team.
Yeah.
And because that's what I controlled. So anyways, again, that's a great compliment to our players in our program, because I think over the course of my career, we were going to respect the opponent, and we would win with grace. And there were times when we'd score a lot of points, and sometimes people didn't always think that, but because of the scoreboard, but we respected our opponents.
You cared about it. Yeah. And I noticed it and I experienced it. And even though it didn't make the loss hurt any less, I remembered it. Well, you know what I mean? And looking back now, being 41 years old, it's kind of the only thing that mattered. The game mattered, but it didn't. You know what I mean? Like that, none of that stuff matters today. But how you treat people matters a lot. Yeah.
And here's a funny thing, Casey. Every coach says, sports teaches the lessons of life. And I certainly agree with that, but that's ensuring that you have systems in place within your program that align with teaching lessons of life. So, and we've all seen there's a lot of ways to coach, but anyways, that I always wanted to do it a way that made sense and always included being respectful to the game and the opponent.
Yeah. So go back to the beginning. So Southern California, that was home. That's where you grew up.
Yeah, San Diego, California, La Mesa specifically, and went to one of the great high school sports programs.
You guys were kind of a dynasty, right?
Helix High School.
That was one of the...
To this day.
Yeah.
And in fact, those in Utah County here will remember Leon White, of course, was a legend. He was a great Helix High player. Casey Tiamalu, Todd Watkins, Kenny Webster. There's a list of a lot of guys that graduated from Helix that played for BYU, as well as many, many other throughout the country, other colleges. And
what was it about that school that just made it special?
A great head coach. Organizational leadership was as good as it gets, had great assistant coaches that had a great passion for their kids and taught the lessons of life the right way, but just a phenomenal head coach that everything trickled down from him. A real belief in doing it, being cutting edge, high expectation. If you step on Helix High's football field or in their weight room, you're expected to be excellent. There's no choice. I mean, and it's not bravado. It's not false. There's just a feeling that permeates throughout that program that there's a high standard that's been set for you, and it's your job to meet it.
And that was before you showed up. So this had you were showing up to a legacy that had been built.
We didn't know any better. We just knew we were supposed to be great. And then, of course, they had systems in place that allowed you to be great. And at least my belief in high school is, in essence, regardless of the high school, they're all 16-year-old kids, right?
Yeah.
There might be 5% who are outliers who the day they were born, you could see this, this person's going to be a great player.
Yeah.
But by and large in high school, you develop them.
Yeah.
So then the real magic is how do you develop? What systems and processes do you put in place to develop this 16-year-old piece of wet cement into being what you want it to be, which is simply just the best player you can make that person.
Yeah.
And if you have those systems in place, it gets easier.
You experienced it. You went and played at Helix. You had this kind of legendary coach, this legendary program. When was it that you decided this is what I want to do with my career?
I actually, Casey, got into, it wasn't a good high school player, not a D1 guy, but was thinking about playing junior college ball at Grossmont Junior College. But literally my head coach said, I was a quarterback for him. The head coach was my position coach. And he immediately said, hey, I want you to coach. So I became a JV football coach at Helix High School the year after I graduated.
So right out of school.
Right out of high school. And then the first thing my brilliant coach did, he said, hey, you were a quarterback receiver guy. So by the way, you're the DB coach. And I looked at him, I said, Coach, but I played quarterback for you. I want to be the quarterback coach. He said, great, just do the opposite. But if you want to be a great coach, you got to learn how to coach on the other side of the ball. I mean, I look today like that guy was brilliant and prepared me. And said, if you're going to be a head coach, you have to be able to wear every hat.
So I did the interview with Danny Sprinkle, and he was talking about going in and being a grad assistant. And he was literally talking about like organizing the shirts for everybody and like the meal schedule and the practice schedule and the expectation. But he talked about if he wouldn't have had that experience, he never would have been able to be the head coach that he was, because he started from the bottom and he learned every part of the business. And it sounds like that was kind of your experience was, as a player, you were one thing, but it's going and learning the defense when you were an offensive guy.
And not wanting to, getting out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, interesting.
And hats off for having Coach Sprinkle on. I've obviously live up in Logan. What an amazing job that guy's done.
No doubt.
But yeah, as a high school, you wear every hat. And it's you're the team psychologist, you're the equipment manager, you're the fundraiser, you're the X&O guy, you do it all. You're the nutritionist, you're the strength training coach.
Yeah.
So I had a real weird, nerdy, I like that stuff for some reason.
Yeah.
And had no formal training, but learned at a young age that I don't have to have a certificate or degree in strength training or sports nutrition. I'll find who the top sports nutritionist is in the world. And at the time, it was a lady named Nancy Clark. And I only knew that through research. So I just simply went and bought her book. And because I was Logan High sports nutritionist by title, right? So I had no choice. So I went and read her book, Exercise Science. A guy named Tudor Bumpa is a Canadian biomechanics exercise science guy. Our whole strength training program was built on his research and philosophies because I read the book.
Yeah.
And so anyways, it was, for some reason, I liked that stuff and found a way to create a comprehensive program that took into account every little detail about how can we get our kids.
I remember your programs, like when we'd play those kids as freshmen, they weren't the strongest kids. When you played them juniors and seniors, like they were physically, they were strong. They'd put in the work.
It was a big deal
and it became a big, always had great defenses, always had great, offense and defensive line, great linebackers. I remember these kids. Who was there? It was, I remember Ryan Bohm was just an outstanding athlete, and Jared Lowe was a really great quarterback, and you had, Bennett, Mike Bennett was just a, incredible receiver. But all these guys got so much stronger.
Yeah.
Like, what's that Olsen kid?
Dylan Olsen.
Oh my gosh. He was
our first top power. You like this story,
Casey.
He was a machine. So those guys came in and I started a strength training program. I read the Tudor Bumpa book, and Bob Epley was the University of Nebraska. He was kind of the cutting edge guy at the time at the university level. And then Bumpa was a Canadian, again, exercise science guy, kind of a nerdy guy. But what I quickly learned is the lift that gave you the most was the power clean. Well, most high school campuses, everyone was bench pressing. You walk around and say, hey, how much do you bench? How much do you bench?
It's the wrong lift.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So we called it, I later learned from Dr. Matt Ray, who I worked with for 2 years. It was about transfer effect. I couldn't speak in those terms back then, but what I learned is that lift used 82% of the muscles in your body, and it was the one that created explosion.
Wow.
So that's all we tested on. And we used to go down to the powerlifting test. Dave Peck from Bingham High School put on a powerlifting contest every year, and you'd squat and you'd bench press and you'd power clean. Well, I'd take the Logan High guys down there, and the only lift we did, we'd pay our money to get in, but the only thing we would do is power clean. And our guys they'd kind of tease us saying, you guys are wussies. How come you're not going to bench and squat? Well, I'd said, let them call you wussies. We'll see you on Friday night. But by the way, guess who was breaking all the state power clean records, the little dudes from Logan High School.
Wow.
Dylan Olson, he was my second year. He did 270, but we ended up having a kid. Our top power clean was 340 pounds.
Holy crap, in high school.
In high school, we had a number of kids that did over 300 pounds. But like anything else, so all of a sudden in our weight room, everybody's competing like crazy to be the best at what? Power clean.
Wow.
Had the greatest transfer effect to improve performance on the field. So that's what we hung our hat on. Kids loved it.
Isn't that incredible? Like with a leader, it's amazing like where the leader focuses, everybody focuses.
But yeah.
And how important that is. You think about all those, like, you take the category of weightlifting and then you break it down into like, what is the biggest opportunity within this? And it's you identifying that like power cleans are the biggest opportunity and saying that's the only thing we're going to keep score on.
So you like this, you remember the Logan Rec Center. Well, again, on every high school campus and in the general public, the bench press was a big deal. Well, I was taking the bench presses and I would take them downstairs and hide them because all of our kids wanted to bench press.
You just didn't even care about it. You're like,
it wasn't even prescribed in our workout, but I would hide them. The general public would bring them back up. So I spent like 3 weeks playing. And they were heavy, you know? So I finally realized that I'm not going to win with the public because it was a shared use facility, the rec center. So what I did is they actually had these jammer presses. You might remember them. They were bench press with your feet on the ground.
Yep.
So to please everybody, I went and raised some money to buy those. So I didn't have to keep trying to fight with the flat bench presses. And for a lot of exercise science reasons, a bench press isn't a great lift for football players.
Yeah, or for anybody. Like it's just not like it's not super practical.
And it's the number one injury. Believe it or not, I studied injury that the angle at which you bench press is bad for the shoulder and shoulder. Interesting. Anyway, so I could this discussion's not for that, but fun stuff.
Going back to Helix, you were there as an assistant for how long?
I was there for a handful of years. I was piddling around going to junior college. I wasn't a great student. I love football. I was bending rebar working on a construction field. It didn't take long to say, that's not very fun. I actually had a good time because the morale, we were very competitive, seeing who could tie the most steel the fastest.
You had a good group of guys.
Good group of guys. We were a team. We all were former athletes. We knew how to work hard and all that good stuff. And I'm coaching at Helix High School, having a blast, coaching DBs, man. Learning. I actually kind of fell in love with coaching defense. And then kind of hit me in the face as I'm piddling around. I have a twin sister who's graduating from Pomona-Pitzer in college. And I'm still piddling around, don't even have my AA degree at a junior college. So it kind of slapped me in the face from just a professional standpoint. Hey, you got to get a degree.
I got to grow up.
Yeah, I got to get a degree. So anyways, after seeing that and a couple of buddies that went out of state graduated, so it inspired me to say, you know what, number one, I got to get out of this comfortable environment. I got to go out of state.
Yeah.
And then I had a buddy I was working with that he had wrestled at Utah State when they had a wrestling program. So long story short, he was back in San Diego working. He said, you ought to try Utah State University. I'm on, where is it? Obviously in Utah, right? But Northern Utah, blah, blah, blah. But so I ended up, got my AA degree and then simply enrolled at Utah State, sight unseen, never been there. Enrolled for the summer classes and drove into Logan, Utah.
I never
haven't left since.
That's incredible. That's, you've kind of told me that God isn't super important in your life until the plane about crashed, and then you got super religious on us. But but it feels like there's like something bigger at play, bringing, you know what I mean? How life is just bigger than like, you take these coincidences and you're just like, how did I get on this road instead of this road? And how different my life is, and like my network, and like just, I don't know, that stuff like blows me away just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like, what was it was it just like, hey, I should do this?
You know what? I wanted to try something different than city life, and Logan, Utah was beautiful. And I was there to I actually took like 21 credits. I graduated in a year. Did so 2 years in a year.
So you got it done quick.
Mostly because I was embarrassed. My twin sister had graduated so fast and I wasn't even halfway through. So I accelerated the time clock, and then actually fell in love. Before I graduated, a guy, Logan High School, had a teaching opening that opened up like a week before school started. Well, with their close proximity relationship with the university, they called up to Utah State, and my advisor, a guy named Ben Lynn and Garris Kraft, they called him and said, hey, we need someone like today because this dude just left and school starts in a week. And he said, I got a guy, but he's not done yet. So I'd had 2 or 3 classes left. Well, they hired me before.
This is what year?
This is 1991.
Okay, so it's early.
It's early. So anyways, they offered me the job. I called my head coach. I said, Coach, my ultimate goal is to get back to San Diego, being a teacher to coach just like you. What do you think I should do? He said, take the job. Get a year or two under your resume and then
go get some experience.
Get experience. And if you want to come back here, it'll be much easier to be hired.
Yeah.
So anyways, I took the job and enjoyed it and never went back to San Diego, only to visit.
When did you start coaching at Logan?
I was 19. I didn't coach my first year, so I think it was 92 or 93. I was the linebacker coach.
Okay, so pretty early.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up watching that rivalry. 3 older brothers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When was it that you switched to be the head coach?
1999 was my first year. Okay. So I was an assistant for 7 years. The job came open.
That was my sophomore year.
Sophomore year. Yeah.
Chris Cooley. He was a beast.
Oh, my goodness. Probably the greatest player I ever coached. There were a lot of great ones.
He was a problem.
He was a problem. Yeah, he was. He's actually coaching wrestling at a junior college now up in Wyoming.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still remember him. He was just different.
Yeah.
Like you could see one of these is not like the others, He was a great tight end. He was a great defensive end. Yeah. So you got started in 99. Did you always know, hey, we're going to go win championships? We're going to go do what Helix High did,
I had an aggressive personality, Casey, and I was big into the process. Like my mind worked that we're going to, the first thing we did, and people at times kind of question it, but I went and found the best schools in the state to play in the preseason. It's like if you're going to win at a championship level, you can't be afraid to play Skyline High School.
Yeah.
Or Olympus High School.
That was when Skyline was like
dominant. Roger DuPay, the greatest coach in the history of the state of Utah.
I still remember watching those guys, and I think they won 5, 6, 7 championships in a row. Yeah, it was.
So a funny story with him, I called him one year and said, hey, Coach, we'd like to schedule in the preseason. He goes, you're kidding me, Mike. You're the first one that's ever called me wanting to play Skyline High School. I said, hey, I don't know if we're going to be able to give you a very good game, but I want to see what it takes.
Yeah.
And they beat us the first time we played them. I think it was 47-3.
Wow.
They just hammered us at Skyline High School. After the game, I went up to him and I apologized to him. I shook his hand. I said, I'm sorry we didn't give you a more competitive game. Next year we'll play better. And sure enough, we ended up beating them. It was either the year after. We ended up beating him, which was a big deal for me personally because of the respect I had for him.
Yeah.
Just taking on that challenge. And our kids left. First, kids are kids. Like they're a little intimidated and scared.
Yeah.
But then when they go out there, it's like, hey, they put on our uniform just like we do. And anyways, if you're going to win at a championship level, you have to be able to
beat those teams. Yeah. But that was a 5A team at a time when, 4A and 5A, there was a gap, and so to go sign up for that is different. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, we took one on the chin, Casey, that first year. It wasn't pretty.
Yeah.
But fun
now,
stuff.
What year was that?
That was 2003, 2002 or 2003. And then I think it was in 2005, we hammered them.
Yeah.
It was, big win for us.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So go back to, because the first championship you won was your third year. The
second year was 2000 when we beat you guys.
Okay. Yep. So 2000, and talk a little bit about that team.
Just an awesome team. And for my first year was Chris Cooley's year.
Yeah.
And anytime there's leadership change, there's a new style of leadership.
Yeah.
Not that the previous one was better or worse, but it takes kids tend to normalize whatever they're exposed to.
Yep.
Good or bad.
Yep.
So I just had a lot of different ideas. And all the way from the way we were going to strength train. I remember choosing captains. A lot of coaches choose to have players vote on who the captains are. Well, I was a believer of letting leadership emerge. I learned it from a Bill Walsh book. We want to let it emerge. So let's have game captains. Why wouldn't you want every player to have an opportunity to be a captain?
Yeah.
So that was how we did it. And then come playoff time, the leaders would emerge, and we'd all know who our 4 leaders were.
Wow.
And then they would be the leaders for the playoff run.
No, it's so simple, but it's so insightful. It you explain it like that, it feels just common sense. It feels like, of course you would do that. Like, why not let the most amount of people have an opportunity to go shine, especially at that age? You're so impressionable.
Yeah.
And to have everybody fighting and wanting to, be proud and have their parents see them walking out there. It's a big deal. It's a gift you could give to them. Yeah.
that I felt it was a responsibility. I needed to give them that gift.
Yeah.
Two-way players. Another thing that was, I learned this is all Helix High stuff, but we didn't, most Utah high school programs, and especially at that time, everybody played two positions.
Of course.
We didn't do that.
You guys were always one position.
One position, and for a lot of reasons, but the first one being, if I have 22 job openings, do you think I'm going to get more applicants versus 11 job openings?
100%, yeah.
Pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
So I got 22 guys fighting for a position. What do you think is going to happen to the production of each player? They're going to get better. They're fighting. So things like that were big to me.
But it's tough to do when there's, less people. You know what I mean? Like when you have less kids playing.
But numbers grew because there were more job openings.
No, I get it, but that's like a leap of faith. Mm-hmm. For you to go do that is kind of, you either... It's one thing to think about doing it, something else to commit to it, even when like maybe you're a little thin in a position that you could have a guy play two ways and be better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But actually committing to it's tough.
But back to the exercise science, like the physiology of playing, a criteria we used is being able to play at 95% of your maximum intensity level or better on each play.
Yeah.
Well, the physiology of playing two ways, you can't accomplish that.
Yeah.
And then we would marry to that what we called metabolic modeling, where we would use conditioning. In fact, I had fun doing this when we evaluated our opponent. We would identify how many two-way players they had. And the more two-way players that opponent had, we would up our tempo, because we had all one-way guys, so we could fatigue them. We did it, and I have great respect for Louis Wong and Chad Van Orton, but we played a lot of games against Timphu High School that had a lot of two-way guys, and we won a number of times against them in the second half, fourth quarter.
Just because of that.
Conditioning.
You felt like they got tired.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And simple, it's pretty simple to say if this guy's only playing half the game and you had to play them both.
And that was when like you and Timphu were like trading off for who was going to win the championship.
Yeah.
I remember Mount Crest always had great programs, and they were always in that mix, but Mount Crest had significantly less championships because Timphu existed. Yeah. Like they were just
they were hard to beat. Timphu.
They were tough to beat.
They were tough to beat. Great players.
They were so good.
Yeah.
Two-way players. You were kind of known for having really innovative, high-scoring offenses. Where did this come from? Like, where did this idea of, hey, we're going to run kind of no huddle, we're going to watch a lot of film, they were explosive. The Riley Nielsen's, the Ryan Bohms, these different, leaders that you had come through that just lit up the scoreboard.
Yeah, fun stuff. Good players. But the real story is this. The 2000 team that beat you guys in the semis that went on to win, we beat Highland High School and Halote Nata. I think they had, you'll remember they had like 7 D1 dudes on defense alone. And I mean, Victor Felipe went to Oregon. Halote was a junior who then went to Oregon and, of course, was a longtime great in the NFL. But Ryan Bohm was our tailback that year. He was a junior tailback. Yeah. And he was the state MVP. But going into the next year, and I give some credit to Art Erickson as well, because with Ryan Zimmerman, they were spreading some things out, doing some innovative things on offense. So long story short, my freshman coach, Wade Lindley, and I were talking about what to do with Ryan. And I'm like, hey, we ought to just put him in the shotgun. And he's our running back, but he can throw well enough to keep defenses honest, but let's make him the quarterback. And at first he's like, well, he's the state returning MVP as a running back. Why do we do that? And anyways, it evolved through that. And I sometimes apologize to Ryan because we lost in the semifinals that year, and we're hoping to win the state championship, but I didn't know enough as an offensive play caller with Ryan compared to what I knew later in my career, which is just a progression of experience, right?
That was a slugfest. I think that year you lost to Mount Crest.
Yes. Yeah. Up in Romney Stadium in front of about 15,000.
Real good team, man. That was so fun.
They were great. Yeah. Ryan, we used wristbands. We used a number of ways to call plays, but I remember I screwed it up on the wristband and had it backwards, and I went over it 99 times. But when you're reading your own writing, sometimes you don't catch those mistakes, which caused a fumble on the goal line. And then another little takeaway from that is they kicked a field goal with like 2 minutes to go to beat us, a 42-yard field goal. And their wing clearly held our guy rushing off the edge. Now, the ref didn't call it, but guess whose fault that was? The head coach's fault for not telling the ref, watch the hold on our wing. Because
you know what happens.
I know what happens, and I knew we had block right on. So I should have given the ref a heads up to watch for the hold.
How funny is that?
Yeah.
That this stuff's photographic.
Yeah.
Like it's like you can remember
yesterday.
it down to the detail of the exact, every mistake.
But I never made that mistake again. That's part of the learning experience of a young coach. And I felt bad about it. And I didn't know he was going to hold, but that was the one thing I could have done.
Anticipated.
Correct.
Yeah.
And hey, we're going block right. Just tell the official, hey, watch that left wing, man, because we're block right here.
Yeah.
He holds on film. Whether he holds or not, I should have said it just to try to prep him up and hope to get one, So anyway, fun memories.
So talk to me about like what you learn through that process, like when you say these are the 5 lessons, or like what's the goal? Like if you could boil it all down to these are my coaching principles, what would you say my coaching principles are?
Probably process and why. I was a huge believer. I never used the word we have to win or we can't lose with our players. They weren't part of our vocabulary. And the reason for that is if you think about doing anything in life or competing, when number one, a lot of people, and especially in Cache Valley, we had all the 3 high schools had their own radio station or the same radio station that broadcast our games. And if you remember the Valley Channel, our games were on TV as well.
Fun.
So now that's fun stuff, right? When you're winning.
Yeah.
But how about the kid that drops the touchdown pass?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So there was a lot of pressure associated with that. And I learned a little bit, like I said, I read a lot. A guy named James Lohr was a sports psychologist, had a mental toughness training book that I taught our kids, or I taught our team that. And one of the things is kids will respond. Some don't respond very well to, hey, we got to win this game. That's just not the pressure they want, or we can't lose. So my whole deal was process. We're going to just build the process.
Because that you can control that.
100%. Then when stress hits us like it's going to in big games, if you revert back to the process, it gets easy, right? And I called it the challenge response. We looked forward to it. We loved it. We're gonna elicit the challenge response when the pressure gets the highest.
Yeah, we
look forward to it. We're gonna peak perform. We're gonna get in the zone.
Kind of that emotional priming, or just prepping them that it's coming. Because those those same tools work with all of us at any age. But you take a young kid, an impressionable kid, and if you can prep them that, hey, this is going to happen. If you don't prep them, when it happens, the pressure kicks up and the stress kicks up, and you get kind of bad behavior versus their best performance.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
So well said, Casey. And then I was big into giving permission for kids to be great. Show them how. So one of the first things I did is created a wall of fame. If you've been in the rec center, we have a tremendous wall. When I got the Logan High job, number one, Merlin Olsen played at Logan High School.
Yeah.
Merlin Olsen,
greats.
One of the top 20 players to ever play football.
Yep.
And anyways, and I learned this also at Helix High School, it's like you have to flood your facilities with greatness, because these kids, when they see that, hey, well, Merlin Olsen and Chris Cooley, quite frankly, Merlin Olsen may not be why Chris Cooley made it to the NFL, but Chris Cooley was given permission to play in the NFL by Merlin Olsen. And every one of those, I can't remember what the number is now, but there's a number of people who played professional football that went to Logan High School. Our kids saw that every day.
Yeah.
And then I placed that wall right next to our locker. They walked by it every day.
So they knew.
Every day. Yeah. It's okay to be the next Merlin Olsen.
Yeah.
And kids are so impressionable at that age that had a huge impact on their effort level and opening their minds to say, I can be whatever I want to be. The real goal was to get him to become a college football player. And I lost track of the number, but I coached many of them that wanted to play collegiately. And I give that wall a lot of that credit, because those kids, it just normalized it.
You showed them what the vision was, what they could become.
That's right. And if you want it, go get it. You'll be it. And I've got processes in place to help you get there. So let's do this together. Combined with a really aggressive approach to, like you talked a little bit about our offenses. I mean, we were going to try to grab your throat, in a respectful way. But we're going to go. You guys were
innovative, and you guys were going. Yeah. So process driven. Giving them permission to be great. What else?
Understand the why. So if we're going to control what we can control the process. Don't copy the process that someone else is doing. Don't use words. Narrow it. Take the complex. Make it simple, and then follow it.
Yeah.
Collect data. I was a big data guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to collect data. Opportunities to be a champion. Here's the weight room. I'm not going to threaten anybody. If you want to be a champion, Here, I'm going to give you an opportunity to be a champion. We got a scientifically sound strength training program that's going to help you be great. I'm going to give you the opportunity to be a champion. Your commitment is you got to attend.
I mean, it's so great. I think about like being a young kid playing in that program. It's like I'd kill for that. You know what I mean? Like the idea of all of us have the teams that we played against that were just trash. And no one, even their players, didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
You know, you don't take
any.
Feel it. Yeah,
yeah,
you could feel it. And they had great players. I remember back in the day, I think it was Roy High School, and they were so bad for so long. They got good later, but they were so bad for so long. And I remember we beat them by 50. But thinking back, like they had some great players.
Yeah.
But they just didn't have the culture and the discipline and those standards. And the idea that you can go be you're a part of something amazing. I think that same thing applies in companies. Any great organization, like we all want to be a part of something that's excellent.
Yeah.
And we all want to be, have the opportunity to shine.
It's contagious.
Yeah.
It's contagious.
It's like, you just don't get too many of those opportunities in life. I think about like great teams that I've been a part of. Those are some of the highlights of my life, being a part of a really great special team that had like a big purpose that you were chasing together.
Fun.
Was that so fun?
Oh, just the experience, the collective experience of all of it, quite frankly. And even some of the losses, back to the process and not talking about winning and losing. This might sound weird, but I didn't like losing. Had my butt kicked a lot. But if the process was done right and we lost,
you could be okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I slept good.
Yeah.
If we blew a coverage, I forgot to tell the ref, watch for the holding, the little things that you could control if you missed one of those. Hard. You never forget it.
That would eat you up because that's like I could have. Yeah.
Could have. We lost a game. The state championship game I lost was against Larry Wall, one of the legendary coaches in the state of Utah, Bountiful High School. We miss a PAT. We intercept. We got a weird penalty for, they called it excessive celebration, moved the 15-yarder. We missed the PAT because of it. We end up losing by a point. We were down a point with 2 minutes to go. We let them score to go down 8, and another kind of an analytics thing. But anyways, I could live with that one. I didn't like that referee call. I think it was a bad call, but I can't control the ref. But
how do you make that call in a state championship game? I just like, come on.
Yeah, let the
game, let the kids, you know what I mean? Don't go be the. Anyway.
Yeah. I hear we could get a. I know you were our favorite NFL ref. I listened to that podcast. It was fun listening to him. What a brilliant guy.
How fun! Yeah, how fun was that?
Loved listening to him and visiting with him when we spent some time together. What an impressive guy.
Who were the players that inspired you the most?
So many, Casey, but something that sticks with me the most is every state championship we won, every kid in the program bought a ring. And put that in perspective. They were fairly expensive, but it wasn't just the 22 starters.
Everybody felt like they were a part of something.
Yes. So that's my favorite memory.
Yeah.
Player-wise. Pretty special.
But talk to me about the players. Talk to me about like who are the ones that you're like, this person impacted this team because of this. Like what were the character traits or what were the, I think about the different teams that I've played on, and there's always one or two people in the locker room that are just a catalyst to make everybody else better.
We were big, and that there were so many of them, Casey. But back to my Helix High roots of. Like we had, when the success came early on with Jared Lowe and Ryan Bowman, those guys, we had created a culture where it was an expectation.
Yeah.
And so whether it's the weight room, Dylan Olson hit 270. Everybody thought that was unbelievable.
Set the standard.
Power clean 270, Dylan Olson. And I was wowed by it, right? Well, the next year, guess what it was? And I won't remember all these names, but it was somebody hit 280. Then somebody hit 290.
So that bar continued to go up.
Just kept raising. And then Riley Nelson scored 84 touchdowns his senior year. And I used to get criticized a lot for people would claim you ran up the score. And I said, well, we couldn't take a knee in the third quarter.
Yeah.
Because that would have been even more embarrassing. But by the way, my rule was this: they played one series in the third quarter. I don't know what else you want me to do. And we went fast, right? So it was a little Anyways, it was tricky, but
Talk to me about Riley Nilsson.
Phenomenal.
Because I remember, like, and this is, again, I'm out of high school. I'm kind of moving on, always paying attention to local sports, and he just was unstoppable. That team was unstoppable. That
pretty impressive.
Offense, defense, but specifically that offense. I mean, it was like literally they couldn't be stopped. I mean, what did you guys average per game that year?
The starters were usually out in the third quarter, but our state championship game in the second quarter I think we were 3 minutes. I remember looking at the scoreboard. We were 3 minutes into the second quarter and we'd scored 42 points.
You just knew.
So yeah, he was a phenomenally tough, competitive. And then we went fast again. So it was easier to score points because the tempo, I was a big believer in the tempo of the game ought to depend upon your opponent. And my rule was this: if I thought we were even, we'd go fast, adjust as according. If I thought we were 2 touchdown better than them, I'd go as fast as we can. In other words, don't let them shorten the game on you. The more plays we run, the higher probability it is that we're going to win the game because I think we're better.
Yeah.
If we're a 2 touchdown underdog, I wouldn't tell the kids, hey, we're going slow, but I could control that. But I would slow it down without them knowing.
Yeah, you'd want to keep the game.
Correct.
Yeah, like as long as you're in the game, you're in the game versus...
And then Riley we had a process. It was fun for me. I was trained as a special educator. That's what I taught. I taught behavior disorder kids for most of my career. So I'm big into coaching is teaching, right? And taking what's complex and simplifying it. And as many points and as exciting as we were to watch on offense, we had the simplest offense of them all. We really did. And we used a criteria called numbers, angles, athletes, first downs, touchdowns. Riley had the freedom to call his own plays. The reason for that, and I did that with all my quarterbacks, the reason for that is if I give you the autonomy and power to call your own play, what's going to happen to your preparation and your desire to win steady film?
And you own it. Like when you call it, you call it with confidence. You're not second guessing it. This is the play.
It's on me.
Yeah.
And with the criteria, like numbers in the box had to be right. Now, if you're calling a bad play, you can't call plays anymore.
Yeah.
But what I saw what these guys would do is it would really inspire them to study film.
Yeah. I had that experience my senior year with Coach Erickson, and he literally let us call the defense. And we'd watch so much film before, and we would match our coverages to their formations. And we felt like we were always one step ahead. But it was so fun. It was so fun to play in that defense because it was so empowering, and you just felt like you could control the game and you could control the outcome.
Beautiful. Great example. And Coach Erickson was a great coach. And the same stat-wise case, it was interesting for me. Like I'd sit our guys down and say, hey, there's only one stat that matters, that we prioritize. It's winning. Number one. So everything is aligned towards winning the game.
Yeah.
However, I've got a system for you guys. Do y'all like stats? Who wants to catch 100 passes? Who wants to score 30? Let's just face it. Kids like that, right?
Yeah, of course.
And who wants, and the all-region team, all those things. And I said, you're going to have great stats in this system. We're going to go.
Yeah.
And
so they believed in it.
They believed in it. So, I mean, we could just go. And it was this simple. I could call a play 150 ways, but we would run a concept and we'd just run it 9 different ways. We call it in the coaching industry, just put lipstick on it. So what I could run, my favorite concept against quarters, for example, is what's called a shallow concept. We ran shallow 16 different ways. Guess what it was for learning? You only had to learn it. That concept one time.
You're just setting up different formations and
there
different.
You go. Motion, shift, stack.
But it's the exact same thing. You're
Quarterback
the same spot.
Yeah, there you go. So taking what's complex and making it simple. And we were an early adopter of the spread no huddle offense, but it wasn't that, hey, we just run the spread no huddle. We followed numbers, angles, athletes, first downs. We put in formations. I called it a Rolodex. I was going to get in a 4x1 to see what you would do. Yeah. If you didn't adjust to it right, I would wear it out until you did.
Keep going, yeah.
And then when you did, I had an answer. You know what I'm saying? So, but kids loved it and they understood it. You could ask any of my quarterbacks or players right now. They could tell you the verbiage of all their plays.
Exactly how it works.
25 years ago, they can tell, IQLO, IQLI, 60. They can. It's fun, and I run into them all the time, and we laugh. And then same thing defensively. I was back to Coach Arneisen teaching me to both sides of the ball. I've been I did both. Yeah, offense and defensive coordinator throughout my career, and helped me be a better coach.
Yeah. When do you know it was time to hang it up?
Ooh, man, I did it. And I actually, my last 3 years, and I remember Brandon Maddox from East High School. I'd lost a couple of coordinators, starting with Keith Peebley. His wife, Reagan, was the women's basketball coach at Utah State. Phenomenal defensive coordinator. I was lucky to have him. At the end of the year, his wife gets the head coaching job, women's basketball at Fresno State. So right before the season's going to start, here's my guy. And I was a guy that, like, he did it. If I'm going to hire a defensive coordinator, you
ran the whole thing.
Yeah. So it's like half of the head coach for half the team.
Yeah.
All I used to tell them is, hey, if they don't score mathematically, the worst we can do is tie, Coach Peebley. So just understand that. True story. He'd get mad at me. Then you got to slow the tempo down. I said, oh, no, we're not going to do that. But anyways, we had fun with that. But anyways, he left. So ended up hiring a guy, and it didn't work out. Didn't gel well with the kids. And so I took it over, doing both. And I remember Brandon Maddox said, it's going to be like dog lives, man. That's going to wear you out. And I said, well, our kids deserve to have it done at a high level.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to do it. And I did it actually for 3 years. And then
come on. So you did the offense and defense.
Yeah, it was fun. The prep wasn't very fun because that took a lot. The game was easy for me. But anyways, I was just really committed to giving kids excellence.
A great experience.
Excellence. Yeah. If I had to do double work, I'd do the double work.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, it did fatigue me.
Yeah.
So in 2015, I had done that, and I didn't have any success getting any. We'd had a few teaching jobs open at Logan High, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out for me to get one of those positions to get a D coordinator. So at that point, I said, I can't keep going at this pace. And I had, to be fair, we'd won the state championship, and I was a little tired, but I had kind of done everything that I wanted to do. There wasn't
too many more things that you wanted to do that you hadn't done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I loved every minute of it. I didn't want to ever get bitter or angry about anything. So I calmly went in and said, hey, I've had a great career. I appreciate everything Logan High has done for me. Loved coaching here. And, you need, I'm done.
Yeah.
Onward and upward. So, it was good, and the timing was good for me, and it's been great. Phenomenal.
Yeah,
memories are phenomenal.
What's the next chapter for Coach Favero?
Man, I do a little bit of private quarterback training. I've always been a pseudo investor since I was a young kid.
I think that was one of the things that I was always so impressed with you, and specifically, like, you've done a bunch of deals with us, and you were coaching high school sports with a high school salary, but creating a 7-figure net worth on the side, and I think that I always admire that so much, of saying, I'm not going to be limited to
have you ever read the book, The Millionaire Next Door?
Yeah.
So I had a principal named Rulon Olson who was the millionaire next door, and I had read that book, and it was really inspiring to me. But prior to that, when I was a 16-year-old kid, my dad said, hey, if you want to invest in the stock market, you go earn some money, and I'm going to match you dollar for dollar.
Wow.
Into the market. So he inspired me, and he didn't even articulate it the right way, but he wanted me in the game.
Yeah.
And I can learn about it in some stock market game on paper in a class.
Or you can bet real dollars.
Get in the game. Yeah. Get in the game.
Yeah.
And I look back at some of the companies I sold them to buy a car or something. But anyways, I got in as a 16-year-old, fell in love with investing in the stock market, made a lot of mistakes, made some good decisions, bought Apple. So anyways, really interested in the business world. I have no formal training, like from an educational standpoint of business.
But it's really natural for you. Like I've spent time with you, with founders and CEOs, and looking at companies, and you're obviously smart. Like anybody that's like a great offensive mind or defensive mind, you have to be smart. You know what I mean? It's numbers, it's statistics, it's recognizing patterns, it's anticipating. It's so many of those same characteristics that make great founders, of companies. Yeah. But I've always been so impressed with just kind of how intuitive a lot of that stuff is to you. And second, the leadership aspect of it is something that you just shine with. I know that you do consulting for different companies, and that leadership and human aspect, I think, is one of your all-time strengths.
Well, I've appreciated Casey having one of the neat things about Cache Valley and having been the coach at Logan High School is exposure to so many people. As you know, Cache Valley is a small town with a lot of successful people.
Of course.
And I feel so lucky to have been exposed to, and I love being around success.
And to coach their kids.
Yeah. Exactly. So just built relationships, and then what better I don't want to say job interview because I wasn't looking for a job, but when you're coaching someone's kid,
they know.
They know because they watch closely.
You can't fake anything too. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And especially, I know so many of the kids who played for you and they just love you. You know what I mean? And that there's something about like, hey, we got good results, but I hate my coach. Yeah. Or like I'd run through a wall for him. And that it was that type of culture where you could see that, you brought out the best of these kids and, they love you forever for it. And it's got to make you so proud.
It really does. And the lesson that I see maybe deteriorating a little bit, to me, it was this simple. And when I've had a chance to share at least my story, or I speak on a national circuit for Glacier Clinics in the off season. I'm going to do that here coming up in the next few months. But as a coach, it's really about trust. Great leaders are trusted. And that was my number one priority as the football coach. These kids need to trust me. And then we could talk about hours about how you build the trust, but it's really, really simple.
Yeah.
Whatever system you're going to have in place, understand the system. And it's like used to call them team standards of excellence or team expectations, not rules. I didn't like rule. I didn't like the word rules. You think of a rule and you want to kind of break it. Like I was the guy, I'd break it. Give me a rule.
It. Yeah.
But you tell me, hey, this is a standard of excellence. Okay, like I didn't say don't be late. I said champions are on time.
Well, what's really interesting is there's psychological principles that you're operating off of, which is just language matters a lot.
Huge.
The words that you use matter a lot. And two words can say the same thing, but one of them says it the way that it needs to be said. And it feels like you were very thoughtful on the language that got brought into your program and that was used and what was not used. You know what I mean?
In addition to coaching, Casey, it's interesting. There's a lot of terms, like I used to call it the Logan High football language. For example, champions are on time. These are standards of excellence. We're going to call the flats, or we're going to call this, we're all going to speak the same language because it can get so misinterpreted and confusing for kids. And, your product's going to be better when everybody understands and speaks on the same language.
If you could, we'll finish with this. If you could go back and connect with, a 20-year-old Mike Favero, what advice would you give yourself if you could go back and coach yourself up?
Man, you know what? I was pretty naive. I was just so excited to get the job. I was a young guy. I had a principal that she just kind of took a chance on me. I was the linebacker coach. They usually don't go from linebacker coach to head coach. And then when I was just wired to say, I'm gonna work hard for this lady. She's gonna be proud. And I don't even know what advice. It's kind of a little bit when I look back. I don't know that I knew what I needed more experience. Like I lost some games early in my career that I feel bad for kids because I had lack of experience.
Those coaching. Yeah.
Yeah. But I look back and go, well, the only way to do it is on the job training.
Yeah.
So I took some hard knocks, made some bad coaching calls and decisions that beat me up to this day. And so just that journey was exciting and interesting, learned a lot. And my big deal was not to make the same mistake twice.
Yeah.
So that's the advice I would give is you're going to fall down. There are going to be some bumps in the road, but make sure you don't make the same mistake twice and prevent it after you learn from it. And you'll get better because of it.
I said it was the last one, but I actually just thought about this. And who are the leaders in your life that believed in you more than you believed in yourself? Like when you're thinking of who's that list of the people that influenced the direction of your life the most?
My parents and, of course, my high school coaches. I mean, and that's why I took it so serious to at least put a plan together that I thought would help each kid grow.
Yeah.
And I called it synergy. If every kid develops and reaches their potential individually, and then we put all these 60 dudes together, we're going to have a magic product. And then I was, like I said before, I was so lucky to be around so many great people.
Yeah.
Bronco Mendenhall was one. Had a chance to spend time with him when he was at BYU, one of the great organizational leaders of all time. Gary Patterson TCU, legendary Coach Gary. We ran the 4-2-5 defense. He was the DB coach when I was an assistant coach at Logan High. Got to know him. And when we had, earlier in my career, I had to train a new defensive coordinator. We were both friends with Coach Patterson. So we go to his house in Texas when he's TCU's guy, and he teaches us how to run the 4-2-5 defense.
You were just a student. You
absorbed all of it. You were
just eating it up.
It absorbed all of it. So just, the lessons, the exposure, to have the chance to be around those types of the people that are the best in the industry.
Yeah.
So, and then that's what it is phenomenal. I mean,
what you're describing right now is the difference for me of the success in my career. It's finding people that are the best in the world at what they do, as far as my influence can reach, as far as I can network, and spending time with them and trying to download the gold, and it's amazing how just success leaves clues and success breeds success. And you talk about this Helix High School dynasty and what you created with Logan High School and this dynasty of, multiple championships. You take a Gary Patterson and the success he had in the Bronco. It's so funny. Sometimes you're the GOAT as a coach and sometimes you're the best thing ever. And Bronco won a lot of games for BYU.
Yeah.
And about the end of his career, it felt like everybody kind of just wanted something new to go have something new. And then he goes to Virginia, a program that hasn't won in a long time. And all of a sudden, they're winning games and playing for conference championships. And you just realize, there's a formula to success. And if you implement that formula and you get people to buy in, the results come. And it's fun. It's fun for me to, look back and kind of see that, because it just affects so many lives. And it's a gift from God. For me, when I think about it, I'm like, what a gift for a kid to play in a great program with a great coach. You think about how that coach changed your life, and you changed so many kids' lives, Coach. And, from somebody who played against you and never played for you, would have loved to play for you because you were that type of leader and that type of coach. And anyway, so it was a pleasure for me to go spend some time with you. It was a real treat. And I'm always cheering for you in kind of those next chapters of the Mike Favero book. I believe your best work is in front of you. It's not behind you. And I think that all of the stuff that you've done up until this point, that there's another chapter where you get to take that and go apply that to continue to change people's lives. And so I'm excited to be a part of it, excited to see what you go do in the next chapters of the book.
Well, I appreciate it, Casey. And again, I admire what you've taught me in this private, and I know you're a fascinating leader, and I feel lucky to be around, you and your team. And I've loved learning about private equity. I know very little about it, but it's fired me up to have an opportunity to be in a few of your funds. And
it's fun.
Trying to, I look back and go, dang it, why wasn't I doing that 20 years ago? My number would be a little different now, and I'm a happy guy. I'm not driven entirely by money, but it's a neat space.
There's this Tony Robbins book that's coming out. He's written a couple just, New York Times best-selling books on finance. He wrote a book called Money Masters the Game, and then he wrote another one that's called Unshakable. But this new book that he's writing, it's called The Holy Grail of Investing, and it comes from this interview that he had with Ray Dalio and Jack Vogel, these kind of iconic, hedge fund managers and some of the smartest people in the world. And they talk about this idea of asset allocation, and that if you have 8 or 9 non-correlating assets, that, you can weather some really rough times. And the problem with the stock market is it's not very, it's absolutely correlated. There's 3, 4, 5 stocks that are most of the
drive the whole thing,
most of the S&P. And so they're, when those are up, everybody's happy, but when they drop, it's moving the whole thing. And he talks about private equity, and he talks about how the wealthiest people in the world have a disproportionate percentage of their portfolio in private credit, private equity, private real estate. And that's just the math. That's just what it is. And I think about that, and, I think that's why I love what I do so much is, this is something that I got into by accident. My mentor, Todd Peterson, did this for 30 years. And so by default, we're looking at him saying, he's doing it, I want to do it. And we got invited to some deals we never should have got invited to and got this experience. And our whole business now is to give access to, more people to see these really awesome private deals and to be able to analyze them and make a decision for themselves. And it's so fun. It's so fun to give that exposure.
Here's what sticks with me, Casey, getting to know some of the founders of the funds that I've invested in is just back to the trust deal and aligning yourself with exceptional operators. And I just remember listening, and I never felt like it was a sales pitch.
Yeah.
I felt like it was an opportunity.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten to meet the people that are running these companies that there's private equity stakes in it, it's been phenomenal. It's been a great learning experience for me. And again, I appreciate it. It's fun. Future's fun.
All right, Coach. Thanks for coming out. Travel safe back to the great, the holy ground of Cache Valley. So we'll see you, brother.
Appreciate you.